Hello and welcome to the Vinyl Sanctuary. My name is Christian and I hope that you will join me in taking refuge in records. So I'm back with another album review request video, and I'm delighted to say that it's on behalf of the Canadian Stud Muffin, also known as Larry Graves, who is a brilliant YouTube content creator and a person whose work I have been following now for many years, as I am a fan of high quality entertainment, and Larry never disappoints in that regard. I was really excited when Larry got in touch on my channel with a selection of albums that he put forward for me to consider reviewing, and upon looking at it, it was very easy to choose the one that I wanted to put under the spotlight for Larry. It's one of his personal favourites, and it's turned 50 years old this month and this year, so the time felt right to give it a listen and to gather my own thoughts and feelings on an album that I have known as well for many years, but it was lovely to give it a spin and to really let that music wash over me again after such a long time. So this one's for you, Larry. Hope all's well. Sending very best wishes to you from the UK. But without any further ado, let's get into the review. So the album that I'm going to be looking at is the wonderful Kimono My House by Sparks. So yeah, released in May 1974, produced by Muff Winwood and released on Island Records. So they were label mates of fellow glam rockers Roxy Music. So regarding the album cover here, we've got the Japanese actresses Michi Hirota and Kaneko Okamura, and they are wearing traditional Japanese kimono. We can see there are some beautiful colours being utilised, of the blues and the pinks against that green backdrop, and I just love the poses here as well. So on the one side we've got a pose there that's reminiscent of Edvard Munch's The Scream, and then on the other we have this rather coquettish pose with the wink and the tousled hairdo and the fan, and it's just such a playful, striking image and one that immediately grabs the attention. It's also known as well for the fact that it doesn't have the album title or the band name on the front. So to get that information, we flip it over there to the back, and there we have Sparks' Kimono My House. So I think it's fair to say that the front cover has definitely gone down in the annals of rock history. It is truly iconic, but I love the rear cover as well. So there in full colour we've got the Mail Brothers, we've got Russell there on vocal gymnastics, and we've got Ron on keyboards. And then in black and white there, the portraits, we've got Martin Gordon on bass, Dinky Diamond on drums, and Adrian Fisher on guitar. So that's the cover. Now we've got the actual record here to show. So this is my copy. That lovely Island label there. Hope you can see that okay. You have to excuse the ring light there. See that? And then we've got the inlay, so all the lyrics there. And believe me, this is an album where you do want to read the lyrics, but I'll get into that a little bit more during the review. We've got some pretty outstanding writing going on here, not only from a musical perspective, but lyrically as well. And then we flip over, and there's another really great shot there of the Mail Brothers. Such a cool, such a cool picture. Okay, so I'm going to be consulting my notes here now for the rest of this review, because I had a lot to write down because there was a lot to get into. So I'm going to be looking up and down and maintaining camera contact, but also I'm going to be looking at my notes as well, just to do this incredible album justice. So yeah, let's get started. There's 10 tracks to get through. The album's about 36 minutes, something like that. So yeah, let's go. It was released to widespread critical acclaim, this record, and it is considered to be Sparks' commercial breakthrough. So that's just something to add there right off the top. The album title is a pun on the song Kimono My House, which was sung by Rosemary Clooney. And Sparks are very well known for their wonderful use of puns throughout their career. They've had some brilliant album titles where puns are very cleverly used. One of my personal favourites is Gratuitous Sax and Senseless Violins. I just think that's brilliant. So I was trying to think of a pun of my own before coming to do this review to try and do the Mail Brothers justice, and I thought to myself, well, they're rather brilliant at puns. So, and in the UK, obviously in Britain, we use the word smashing to regard something as being, great or brilliant or whatever. So I'm going to say that Sparks, Mail Brothers, are smashing pun kings. So there you go. That's my little attempt there at a pun. So we'll move on there from that one and we'll get into it. So opening track, This Town Ain't Big Enough for the Both of Us. Wow. It is an absolute classic masterpiece. No other way to describe it. I'm actually getting chills there just saying that. This is honestly just an unbelievable piece of music. It's easily one of the best side A track ones of all time. It sounds pumped up, it sounds urgent, and it's slightly otherworldly as well. And I've also written here that it's lost none of its impact half a century later. You wouldn't hear this and think necessarily that it came out in 1974. This could be released tomorrow, this week, and it'd still sound contemporary and fresh, and always the sign for me of a great song. The title itself, This Town Ain't Big Enough for the Both of Us, it's a phrase commonly used in Western movies, but I believe that the Mail Brothers in this instance were referring to the line being uttered in the 1932 film The Western Code. But the line itself has become something of a trope within the Western movie genre. You tend to get that line cropping up in a lot of films that are in that Western sphere. We can hear gunshots being heard during the song, which adds to the overall sense of excitement as it pounds along. And there's a slight impending danger, I feel, to the track as well, with the song just moves along. It's relentless actually, and then when you throw into the mix this incredible vocal performance by Russell Mael, it's just, yeah, it just really gets the blood going. Yeah, the vocal gymnastics there that I mentioned earlier, they get a really solid workout on this particular track, which Russell demonstrates enviable control of the voice and a keen understanding of tonal shifts in order to create tension and release as well. So there's a lot going on in terms of the musicality, but I do think the vocals warrant special mention here too. The guitars absolutely rock. Ron Mail's keyboard soar. It's a powerful dramatic opener. It packs one hell of a wallop. It makes one hell of an entrance, and then it rides off into the sunset. So yeah, I mean, already with this track, you do kind of wonder what's going to follow on, and is this going to be one of those albums where it's sort of right, big, wonderful, amazing song. What's the rest of it going to be like? Well, the tracks are to varying degrees, of course, and This Town is my favourite, but I can assure you that there are no duds whatsoever on this album. Every single track is brilliant, so I'll continue to work through them, and you'll find out how much I enjoy the album. So track number 2 is Amateur Hour, and I've written here it's a strong track to follow on from This Town. It's another stomper with a brilliant guitar riff courtesy of Adrian Fisher. The ooh 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 section is genuinely lovely lyrically. The song documents a transition from amateur to pro, and in an album peppered with wonderful words, we do get the following gem here. This is an absolutely brilliant lyric. It's a lot like playing the violin. You cannot start off to be Yehudi Menuhin, which makes me smile. It's just genius. It really is. I love how the song instructs the listener that once amateur hour is over for any of us, so in this case it's talking about a loss of innocence, and the journey through adolescence as well, that we're going to know when that happens. We're all going to know when we turn pro. We all go on that life experience. So it's a great song that explores sexual conquest, growing up, and that practice makes perfect. That's probably the way that I would summarise the track. And I do feel that the song, from a musical point of view, has a slightly Roxy Music vibe to it. That's just something that I personally feel. But in terms of a follow-on from This Town and keeping up that momentum, keeping up that quality control, Amateur Hour really does shine and should be celebrated in its own right. Certainly not just an album track. Then we've got number 3, which is Falling in Love with Myself Again. The rhythm section here gives the opening of the intro a slightly heavy feel, and the main melody is a little bit proggy, I feel, and it's coupled with this sort of really interesting carnival circus type waltz. So there's a bit of a sort of a dizzy feel to this song. It sort of almost makes you do feel like you're whirring around a little bit, especially when I'm listening to it with the headphones on. The little bass and guitar runs here add such a great flavour to the tune, so they definitely need to be mentioned. It's a very grand sounding song, and I love how the percussion in particular sounds. So I just want to add in that regard that Muff Winwood's production work on this album throughout is brilliant, but I really, really do particularly enjoy it and appreciate it on this track. So little sip of water, and then we'll carry on with track number 4. So now I'm going to be talking about Here in Heaven. So I love the melody on this particular track. It sounds very dramatic, a little bit doomy as well. It's suitably Shakespearean sounding with its urgent music hinting at something dark and morbid. And the lyrics here, we have this Romeo character lamenting to Juliet that he's here in heaven while she continues to live. So Romeo recounts how they made a suicide pact, and he pontificates as to why Juliet has let him take the lead. So there's a lot of exploration there in the lyrics around that. It's also my second favourite track on the album. I was sort of umming and erring between Amateur Hour and Here in Heaven being my second behind This Town, but I actually think this one does just about win out, because I do really like the theme of the lyrics here with the whole Romeo and Juliet thing. So that is something that just kind of pushed it over the edge with me being a person who's really into my literature. It just sort of gives it that little extra edge there, and the band are in superb form as they are throughout the whole album. So then we get to track number 5, which is Thank God It's Not Christmas. The opening guitar line and accompanying percussion. It practically births, in my opinion, the majority of most early noughties indie bands. Honestly, when you hear that riff at the beginning, I mean, that could have been written, sort of 20, 25 years ago. I mean, for it to have been written 50 years ago, it actually sounds pretty ahead of its time. I was really quite shocked when I sort of reacquainted myself with the album, just how indie that particular guitar riff sounded. So that instantly came to mind. Still sounds very fresh. There's chunky rhythm section, chugging guitars, and Russ Mail's supremely controlled vocals again on this one. I love Ron's contribution too, with some really neat keyboard lines underpinning the song. So those two, the brothers, always working in harmony with one another, always complementing each other in terms of, whether it's the lyrical and vocal lines doing sort of maybe a bit of the heavy lifting, and then you've got the melodies underneath the musical side underpinning it, or it can be switched as well at any given time, sometimes even within the same track. There's a tasty little guitar solo here as well, and some great playing towards the end by Martin Gordon and Dinky Diamond. So that rhythm section, as I mentioned before, that's rather chunky, that does come into its own, in my opinion, right at the end. But yeah, that solo from Adrian Fisher is really, really nice. Track number 6 is Hasta Mañana, Monsieur. This is a really catchy chorus on this one, and I feel that the supremely clever lyrics and the powerful poppiness of this number would most definitely have made a big impression on a certain young Stephen Patrick Morrissey, who I know is a big Sparks fan. I mean, I've read that many times. I do know that Morrissey holds Sparks in, huge esteem. So I think the chorus actually on this one, and this is what I thought when I was listening to it, it's certainly in the way that I think Russ Mail sings it and the way that the band plays it. I actually think it could have influenced a number of Morrissey songs, especially from his solo career. Maybe not as much Smith's numbers, but when I actually hear the chorus, Hasta Mañana, Monsieur, just something about, I don't know if it's the chord sequence maybe, or the lyrical styling of it, the vocal styling. There's just something about it that it just sounds like something that Morrissey's probably, he may have even have, subconsciously taken it at some point, but it just really feels like something that he would sing, or that one of his songwriters would write for him. So there's something about this song then that when I hear it, it does have that kind of 80s jangly indie vibe to it again, which would suggest that the song in the album itself is ahead of its time. It's a fine track on the album. As again, as I mentioned, there are no bad tracks here out of this 10. And special mention has to be given for the castanets towards the end. They really, really make me smile. So if that was like a production suggestion there from Muff Winwood, or if it was something that Dinky Diamond planned to do with putting them castanets in with the Hasta Mañana Monsieur, yeah, it's making me smile thinking about it now. So yeah, that was a really cool idea to do that. Okay, so then we get to track number 7, which is Talent is an Asset. What an intro. Need to say that straight away. It's a bit of an old school rocker, especially that thumping bass that we've got, which this might be a little bit of a stretch, so maybe was it an influence on Rush on Ruffians by the Smiths? I do hear a slight similarity there, and given I've just been talking about Morris's appreciation for the band, is there any chance that maybe there was a little bit of Sparks getting listened to while Meet His Murder was being written? I don't know, but I just thought it was something to mention. Maybe something there that in the comments could be discussed. But yeah, there is a distinct rockabilly sound that I hear in it with that bass, and it could well have gone on to influence many other bands as well. Maybe not just the Smiths, but other artists who've sort of, you know, dabbled in that sound, or have maybe made that sound their own signature. I just feel that with Sparks, that especially this album, that I just feel that the reach of it is huge in terms of influence. Maybe it just doesn't always maybe get that credit or name check that a lot of other albums do, but I just feel that in the DNA, that there's just something about it that continues to inspire, and I really do feel that there will be other artists who've come after them that will have mined from this particular source. So in terms of the lyrics, we've got this is brilliant. It's character obviously centrally is Albert Einstein, and I've written here that it's a brilliant example of how the English language can be used to educate and entertain at the same time. I adore the outro too, where Albert's relatives, and the whole song is a play on the fact that it's Einstein's theory of relativity. So we've got these lyrics talking about relatives and non-relatives, but in the outro, um, his relatives are being asked to leave, and over the course of the lyrics, the where they're being asked to leave to just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and more silly and more ridiculous. So they're asked initially to leave his study room, and then by the end of it, they're being asked to leave the universe. So that always makes me smile, just that it gets wider and wider and more ridiculous as we go along. But it's just such a clever song. It really, really is. Delightful wordplay, and the build-up holds the listener's attention effortlessly. So the more that he's sort of keeping this sort of scheme going within the words, the more it's sort of like, oh, there's another one, there's another one, there's another one, until yeah, eventually it's the universe that we're talking about. Um, I've also got here that I like the theme to the song, that the relatives of Albert are almost pleading with him not to forget them when he inevitably becomes famous. So, the lyrics are talking about Albert being a genius. And there does seem to be like a little bit of a tinge of sadness to it, because it's almost that the lyrics are exploring the fact that, if when Albert eventually, flies the nest and he's going to go on to change the world and do his bit for humanity and for science, that they're almost just saying, look, don't forget about us, no matter what's kind of out there for you, we're always your family, we're always going to be your relatives. So it's my third favourite song on the album as well. I would put it there under Here in Heaven and This Town. So another brilliant, brilliant song. Thoroughly enjoyed listening to it, and it just keeps up that continual momentum that this album does possess. So then we get to track number 8, which is Complaints. Complaints can bore us like an avant-garde-ish chorus. Another lyric in here that I really, really like. Um, it's just absolutely brilliant. Again, the wordplay is just on another level. You know, we talk about these very famous lyricists who are very witty and very sharp, and you know, can have these wonderful turns of phrase. But you've got in Ron Mayle, Russell Mayle writing that the way that they get into. I mean, they're getting into stuff like syntax and you know, sort of rhyme schemes and, you know, rhythms within words and beats, and I mean they're getting into like really deep linguistic stuff. So yeah, and as I mentioned before, puns and that sort of stuff. So really, really clever guys in that way for writing brilliant pop songs and combining the two. So I've said about Complaints that it's a song that examines how one deals with things that aren't perfect in this world. Do we grin and bear it, or do we complain? I think that is something that we can all relate to, isn't it? You know, are we just going to sort of take our medicine and think, yeah, well, I would have preferred that not to have happened, but I'm going to make a bit of fuss about it. Am I going to complain? Am I going to kick off? Or am I just going to think, yeah, well, it is what it is. Let's just accept it and move on. So that for me is what the theme of the song's about. I love the guitar work here by Adrian Fisher. Made a note of that there towards the end. And he lets loose a little bit actually on this track. You know, there is a really, really nice little bit of guitar playing going on. It's quite rocked up. Some really sort of, you know, quite speedy playing going on there. You know, getting a few notes into those bars, which is great to hear. So yeah, at one point it was making me think, yeah, I really need to get my old guitar out at some point and have a play. So any albums that ever make me feel like that when I want to, you know, plug in the old guitar and rock out is always going to get a thumbs up from me. So track number 9 is in my family. I feel like this one had another attention grabbing introduction. And Russ Mayle's falsetto here sounds superb when it's brought to the fore. That was just something that I did notice within the track. It's got another infectious chorus too. So one of the big things that Kimono My House has got going for it is its chorus quality. A lot of these choruses are really, really, you know, they just stick in your head so quickly, and you'll probably find yourself singing or humming the choruses, the words, the melodies, long after the album's over. In My Family is no exception. It's got another great chorus, super clever words too, so that's consistent with the album. It refers to hanging oneself in their family tree and manufacturing many me's. So I interpreted this as it was a bid to make the family more tolerable. So it's almost like this almost like a bit of an ego to it, really, in that, you know, I mean, I could be misinterpreting it, but the way that I hear it is that if he's talking about manufacturing many me's, that he's seen himself as being the sort of the primary member of the family, and, you know, the person that maybe others could or should aspire to be. That's just, you know, one take on it, my take. So I'd be interested to hear what other people make of that particular part of the song. I've even got here in my notes that there's always so much to unpick in Sparks' lyrics, but I think that that's actually a really interesting thing and a good thing, because it does spark, you know, conversation, dialogue between people in terms of just trying to get to the heart of the matter. You know, what are these songs aiming for? Sometimes I feel that they're more obvious than others. I think sometimes others are open to interpretation. Um, I've also put here, which is something that I do feel about the lyrics in general with Sparks, is that because there is a lot to unpick, and because once you can kind of look at the surface level, you know, and just admire the rhyming or the poetry or the puns or the, you know, the pop culture references, whatever it is that's going on within the song, you know, the references to historical figures, etc. I feel like when you do take time to unpick the lyrics of a Sparks track, that it's like digging for buried treasure. Um, and it's something that I do particularly enjoy. So once you feel like you've unearthed something that's, you know, a bit of a diamond, a bit of a gem, that you can sort of think, oh yeah, you know, I really enjoyed that part of it, or it's made me think in a different way, then that just adds another extra layer of brilliance to the song for me. And then we get to the final track, track number 10, which is Equator. I'm definitely going to consult my notes here. This one was a bit of an epic. It's got a slightly, excuse me, slower tempo to this closing track, and it feels like something that within the broader context of the album, clocking in at just under 5 minutes, I feel like it's a track where the band are trying to really make a statement. They're really trying to have this album close on a number that is going to make you maybe think, or maybe as well it's designed to give you a little bit of a breather, because the album is relentless in terms of its pacing. It's quite, it is just stomping along from right from the very beginning. It's pretty pumped up. So perhaps it was a conscious decision to slow the pace a little bit towards the end with Equator. Just my opinion on it. I also feel that the track, even though it's a little bit slower, it's got a bit of a swagger to it, almost a preening quality. It's almost a bit of a bit, sort of strutting around, like, look at me type thing. So I quite like that vibe to it. There is a sax sound on this song, which I believe is being created by Ron Mail, and he's using a mellotron to produce that sound. There's a section towards the end where Russell sings unaccompanied. The musical instruments begin to sort of bow out one by one, and it just leaves Russell singing, the word Equator, and I just think it's such an inspired choice. Again, whether that was a thing agreed with, in sort of tandem with production with Muff Winwood, or if it was always part of the composition to do that, I just think it really gives an extra quality to Equator. Just the way that everything begins to disappear, and then you've got this wonderful voice on full display, shining, coming through the speakers the way that it does, and there's a bit of like sort of multi-tracking going on, and just this sort of like quite a spacey sort of vibe to it as well. So just something that I really, really appreciate. And then I also feel that because of the nature of the song, that it closes the album on quite a strange note. And what I mean by that is that I feel that it allows the listener to almost process everything that they've just heard. So that kind of goes back to what I mentioned a moment ago, in that maybe slowing things down a little bit, taking the foot off the gas, it's just giving people that chance to think, you know, take a breath and take it all in. Because when you kind of take a minute to think about the sheer amount of, imagery that's been thrown at you over, 30 odd minutes, and all of these quick fire references, and all these really sort of incredible bits of lyric writing and musical work, and guitar riffs are coming in, and there's bass lines popping about, and there's keyboard melodies in and out, and all the rest of it. Then you've got this voice that's falsetto, then it's sort of going really, really high, and then it's sort of coming back down again. But when you do sort of all bring it together, it's actually quite a trip in that regard. So it could just be that it's a way of just giving you that palate cleanser, and to think, yeah, I've experienced something here that's really, really quite special, something unique. And I would say that something within 1974, I mean, who else was really doing what Sparks were doing? I mean, yes, there are certain crossovers. I mean, there is the whole, there was the glam scene, which they were very much part of. I've already mentioned Roxy Music a couple of times, who were label mates, and there's the odd song here and there that remind me of Roxy, but I do think Sparks were very much doing their own thing, and continue to do that throughout their career. So in conclusion, it's a masterpiece as far as I'm concerned. I really do. I think it is a wonderful album. Really, really enjoyed playing it after a good while away. I haven't played it in some time, to be totally honest, but it's always been one that I've had in the collection that I'm pleased to own. I've owned it for a long, long time. And in terms of other albums off the top of my head from 1974 that I would say would kind of be up there with the quality of Kimono My House, the only one that's really coming to mind, and it's a different album, would be Radio City by Big Star, which did come out in 74. That is a power pop classic. But in terms of, you know, pure glam brilliance from 74, then I really think, among, maybe along with some others, but I think you've got to be looking at Kimono My House as being the number one there with that. So yeah, I mean, if you're not aware of this album, I would definitely recommend that you check it out. I really, really do. It's over almost as quick as it begins. The pace doesn't let up. It's just massively entertaining, brilliant songwriting, some of the best lyrics and couplets and rhyming schemes that you'll see in rock music. So great energy to it, always makes me smile. I've been smiling all the way through this review. Even now, I just thinking about going putting this town on, or a few of the other tracks as well, just because I enjoy it so much. So yeah, that's my sort of whistle stop tour through Kimono My House. Thoroughly enjoyed listening to it and putting my notes together. So it was a pleasure there talking through it. And Larry, I do hope that you enjoyed this review and that I sought to do it some justice for you. I know how much you love this album, so I'm definitely a fellow Kimono My House fan as well. And yeah, if you liked what you saw there and what you've heard me talk about with the album, please do share your comments on this album, share your experiences of it with me. I'd love to read what you have to say. I really do enjoy getting into conversations on the comments on the channel. So yeah, please don't be shy if you've got something to write about. Anything that I've mentioned today that maybe you agree with, disagree with, then do let me know. If you'd like to see future content from me on the Vinyl Sanctuary, then please do consider subscribing to the channel. I would really appreciate it if you consider doing that. If you like my video today and you want to give it a thumbs up, that would be great as well. And if you do make the decision to come on board and start following my work, then if you click the notification bell, that will give you the signal as and when I've got new material landing, that I've got something there new, ready and waiting to go. So that's it from me. Thank you very much for your time. I really, really appreciate it. Thoroughly enjoyed doing this review. I've got some other videos I've done on the channel as well, as I'm still fairly new. So if you like what I've done, then please do go and have a look at them. I've got some more album review requests as well that are currently in the pipeline. So I'm going to be working through them in sequence. So I'll hopefully have something ready again soon. So until then, thank you everybody and goodbye for now.